welcome to Autumn Lee at Home. My name is Autumn Lee, and today I'm going to teach you guys about water bath canning versus pressure canning. If you're new to water bath canning and pressure canning, this is the perfect video for you. In this house, we are also still learning. I'm still learning, so this is something that I wanted to do for those that have maybe never been around it before, don't have a lot of friends or family that do it. Please follow along with this video. This is a video I plan to use moving forward for any projects that we do at the house. I would love to reference this video back. That way, for anybody that's new to the channel or new to water bath canning or canning in general, you can follow along with us and you can start from scratch, learn as I have through YouTube videos and asking a lot of questions. So if you have any questions in this video, feel free to comment below. Please like, subscribe, and share, and let's get started. So today we are going to go over water bath canning, which is this pot, and pressure canning, as well as all the different materials that I'm using. So the water bath canner looks like this. You can also use a regular pot, a normal pot, and as long as you have some sort of barrier between you and the jars. So this right here is just the pot I use. I store it in there, but that's just a pot I use for when I'm canning and everything. But this pot is the water bath canner, and as long as you have some sort of barrier between the jars and the pot itself, really you could turn any pot into a water bath canner. So this one in particular was bought and made for water bath canning. So it comes with a little rack that you can use on the inside, which is handy when you're trying to get hot jars out of the water. However, you don't have to have this. So when you're water bath canning, you need some sort of barrier between the glass jars and the pot. Otherwise, when they start moving around, the jars can crack and break. And obviously, if you're going through all that trouble, you don't want that to happen. So I would strongly recommend having some sort of barrier between the jars and the pot. You can use a dish towel, just put it in the very bottom of the pot, even in boiling water, that's fine. Again, the dish towel tends to move and the water's boiling, so you don't want to hurt yourself. Just be really careful using that. It can get a little tricky, but that's okay if that's what you have. And then obviously that can work with any pots. So it used to be that you had to sterilize your jars and your lid and warm up your lids, but I will post below the link that that is no longer a requirement. It's not necessary as long as you are pressure canning or water bath canning for a certain amount of time. So I will link that below and you can go ahead and do your own research. Follow me up with anything that I tell you. Obviously feel free to follow up and make sure that that's appropriate. But now moving forward, you don't have to sterilize your mason jars, or disinfect them, which is great, because as long as you're doing it for a certain amount of time, just make sure you're starting off with clean jars, because obviously you don't want to put food that you're going to put in your mouth in dirty jars anyway. That's just kind of more of a common sense thing. So just make sure when you're pressure canning or water bath canning that your jars are already clean. And once they're clean, you can warm them up using a water bath canner or a pressure canner. Now, a big difference with water bath canning is you fill the water all the way up when you're water bath canning. With pressure canning, most of the time you just put the jars in about 2 inches of water in the bottom of the pot. So this is a pressure canner. And the reason that you have two different versions is for the type of food that you're canning. So say I'm doing something with a high acidity level, such as peaches or tomatoes or tomato sauce or anything like that, you can water bath can. Now, pressure canning is needed for anything with a lower acidity level, such as if you're canning meats or green beans, or even if you're doing soup that has those items in it that have a lower base. Even though it's a tomato-based soup, you would still need to pressure can because you're putting other items in there that are not high acidity. So that's where the pressure canner comes in. This is what I have. I believe it's a 23 quart Presto pressure canner, and it just unscrews like this. There are many other versions of pressure canning. Now, I am learning and I'm just starting out, so this is the one that was feasible within my budget. Now, obviously, there are some out there that are really nice, and if you're an avid canner, then, or if you become an avid canner, then it may be good for you to invest in one of those. However, while I'm learning, this is working great. It's big enough for me to do large batches, and it works just fine. I believe I saw that it's about 150-ish online, like on Amazon or in your store. So I'll link this below, the type that I have, and that way if you're interested in it, you can look below. But this is how you determine the pressure canning and how the PSI level, so how high the pressure gets, and that's right there using this gauge. And typically for elevation of 1,000 feet or less, then you pressure can at a PSI of 10. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean? It all depends on where you live. So my elevation here where I live is a little over, it's between 800 and 900 feet. And so a lot of the canning books do a pressure or elevation level of 1,000 or less. And so a lot of times I would do the PSI. So you measure PSI by, again, this gauge right here. And if you look closely, you can see the 10 there at the top, and there's like a little black line that tells you if you're close and within that. So when you're pressure canning, you want to look to see how high your city is above sea level. So my city where I live is about 837 feet. And so I want to go by pressure canning and using the PSI that's appropriate for that level of above sea level. So that's something that you'd have to research of where you live and look it up online, and it's easy to Google. You just Google elevation level for the city and state that you're in, and it will tell you. So that's very helpful. And then the ball canning book will tell you about what level you need to pressure can using the pressure canner. So when using the pressure canner, again, you want some sort of barrier between your jars and the pressure canner, and that's where this comes in handy. So I don't have one of these for in here, but I could use this in here if I wanted to. It doesn't matter. But because I already have the rack in there, I don't need to. So this comes in handy. This is the barrier that I was talking about between your jars and the bottom of the pot. And that comes, when you buy a Presto canner, that comes inside. And then, so you have that in there, and this is what it looks like. If you can see, that's what it looks like inside. And then you have this on top. And right here is where when you're pressure canning, you want to vent, and I kind of go over this while I'm pressure canning too, because it's part of, pressure canning and doing the videos. But if you're new to it, I'll give you kind of a quick rundown of what it looks like to pressure can. When you're pressure canning, you want to make sure that your mason jars and your water are all about the same temperature when you're putting, like, say I'm doing tomato sauce, or I guess you wouldn't pressure can tomato sauce. Say I'm doing green beans. When I'm filling my jars with the green beans, you want to make sure that the jars are already warm, because you don't want to put cold jars into a hot pressure canner or a hot water bath canner, because that runs the risk of them cracking or busting because of the temperature being different. So you want to make sure that the liquid inside and the jars and the liquid in here are all about the same temperature and warm. Once the jars are all warm, they're all filled, and you're ready to put them in the pressure canner, you already have your 2 inches of water in the bottom of this. So you'd sit them inside, you put this lid on, you want to make sure that it is locked, if I can. Mine kind of fits like a puzzle, so I got to find the sweet spot. So I found the sweet spot, I'm locking it by turning the lid. Again, if you have a different pressure canner, you may have to bring up the pieces and tighten them down on different sides. Just make sure you're doing the opposite sides at the same time. So you don't want to go around doing one side all the way around. You want to try to do the opposite. But for mine, I just tighten the lid. Now the jars are inside, the water is warming. Then it's time to bring up the steam. And I want to see steam coming out this little spigot right here, this little spout. I want to see steam coming out of that, a steady stream for at least 10 minutes. Once I see that, you're not going to see this move at all. This is going to stay down at 0. But once I see a steady stream, then I take my weight. This is what a weight looks like right there. And again, this comes with the pressure canner. So once you get the steady stream, you take your weight and you put it on top, and now it's on top, then you'll start seeing the gauge rise. And once you see the gauge rise, I would not start off, it's tempting to turn your stove up as high as possible. However, if you do that, it makes it a lot harder to manage the pressure up here. I know it's annoying, but slow and steady wins the race. So slow and steady is best. Once you put your pressure canner on the stove, I would put it on like medium heat and just let it sit so you already have your weight on, you're letting it sit, and slowly you will see the gauge start ticking up. It can take a while, but I would do it that way, because once you reach your PSI that you're wanting, then it's a lot easier to manage it and keep it there if you do it slow and steady versus let me hike it up to as high as possible just to get it going, and then it's harder to manage the PSI level. And so when you're pressure canning, again, reference your elevation level as well as the ball canning book, or websites that are appropriate. And it will tell you what's appropriate PSI for your elevation where you live. Once you know that and it's ready to go, then the ball canning book or whatever book you're using also should tell you how long it is supposed to, whether it's a pint jar, quart-sized jar, anything like that. It will tell you how long it needs to go and how long it needs to stay at that PSI level. So say quart jars, I'm pressure canning the quarts and they need to stay at that level for 25 minutes. So recently I did chicken broth and that one was a PSI of 10. So I brought my little gauge up to 10 and then I let it stay there for 25 minutes because I was doing quart-sized chicken broth, and it had to stay at the 10 for 25 minutes. If it goes below, you have to start all over, and I don't want you to have to do that. So once it gets to the 25 minutes and it's been on 10 or maybe 11, then that's okay. You're welcome to, you're finished. You're able to be finished, and that's great. So after that, you want to leave this on the stove. Don't try to move it. Don't try to pick it up. Just turn the stove all the way off. And you'll see this right here. Here, I'll unhook it so that you can see it better. You'll see this right here. Right there, I'm kind of popping it up. I don't know if you can see it well. When the pressure is high on the inside, you will see this sit up like that. It will be popped up. When the pressure goes down, it comes down. This is a good tool and easy to use. And again, your pressure canner may look a little bit different, but it's a good tool to use that, and you need to use it because that way you don't get harmed in any way. So once, and these are very safe as long as you're doing it appropriately and you're following the instructions. These are very safe. They're very, they've been tested, manufactured, all of the above, used by many, many people. So I'm not really too worried about it. I've never had any problems. I hope I never have any problems. But as long as you're doing it appropriately and following all the instructions, then they're safe. So one of those instructions being that once you're done pressure canning, your 25 minutes is up, it stayed at the right pressure, then you're finished. It's time to turn the stove off and just let it sit. Let it sit until you see this come down. Once this is down, I would still let it sit for a few more minutes because it's still going to be very hot. Just kind of walk away. It's not going to hurt it to sit on the stove for a while. While you're pressure canning, you want to find something to do in the kitchen to find the time or bide your time. That way you can keep an eye on the pressure and kind of be checking it over and over again. Maybe wash dishes, clean the kitchen. I'm not really sure. Cook dinner. Just make sure you're watching it. But once this little piece goes down, then it's safe to open it. I usually wait a little bit longer just to be on the safe side, but once that goes down, it's safe to open it. You unscrew it, and then you can take your jars out of the water. Again, I sometimes just let it sit in the water for a little bit just to kind of cool down, normal temperature slowly. But technically it's safe to take them out. I would get a towel onto your counter. That way you're not putting a hot jar on a cold surface. But get a towel, then take your mason jars out using this piece, which I'll show you these pieces here in a minute. But using that, you're gonna take your mason jars out, sit them on the counter, let them come to room temperature overnight. So once you take them out, leave the rings on, sit them on the counter, and let them cool overnight. And then about 12 hours, at least 12 hours. And then the next day, you're welcome to take the rings off. And I would recommend that. Reason being, these rings right here, and some people, there's many, many people that leave them on. However, I want to explain why I would recommend taking them off. This is a pint-sized jar, or well, they both could be pint-sized, but these are for the smaller head jars, and these are for the larger head jars. Either one, the rule is about the same, or the recommendation is about the same. A lot of people leave these lids on and put them on their shelves. However, you can get a false seal. What that means is, say you didn't get a great seal when you pressure can or water bath canned, you left these on and you set them on the shelf. They could come unsealed even with the ring on, and then depending on the temperature of the house, reseal again, but you never know how long they were unsealed for. They could have been unsealed for 2 weeks, the food inside spoiled, and then because you have this ring on, there's the chance that it would reseal and but the food inside's already bad, and you wouldn't know that. Now, if you didn't have this ring on and say they came unsealed, it's less likely for them, a lot less likely for them to accidentally reseal. So ultimately you would find out that the food spoiled faster. It's recommended not to stack jars. So we want our foods shelf stable. That's kind of the whole point of pressure canning and water bath canning. And so I want to do my job of trying to help it stay safe as long as possible, or good as long as possible. Now, ideally, they would all seal. You wouldn't have any problems with them unsealing. Once you take them out of the water bath canner or the pressure canner, then you start slowly hearing the ping sounds, and you can even be hearing the ping sounds when you're starting to take them out that soon. So it can be a lot of fun, and I'm having a lot of fun learning. I still have a ways to go. There's so much, sorry. There's so many things that you can pressure can and water bath can, and I'm enjoying just the learning process. So I think that's where I want to just take the time for you guys to learn as well. I do want to take the time to show you guys what these pieces look like. This is a lot of the tools that I use for canning. Now, financially, it can be a lot getting started. I would start with, if you're completely new to water bath canning or pressure canning, start with water bath canning. This can be a lot simpler as far as learning and the learning curve. Now, if you've been water bath canning and pressure canning makes you a little nervous, I totally understand. That was where I was. I still am a little bit. I'm still learning. But I just tell myself, learn one thing at a time. One thing at a time. That's one of the things that I encourage myself with. And I know I say it a lot in my videos, but I want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable doing this too. And if you have any questions, always feel free to ask. But some of the tools that I use to can, both water bath canning and pressure canning, this helps you get the jars in and out of the pots without hurting and burning yourself. Then I have the funnels. I have two funnels. I am looking for a metal funnel because I've seen those on a few different websites, and they're the large ones that just hold a lot more. And so I want to find one of those. But this funnel, as long as it's pretty wide mouth for the most part, you can find these in the canning sections or even online. So I'll link that below. And then this is a stick with a magnet on it. This is handy for getting the lids and the rings outside of the warm water when we used to have to warm our lids up. Now, I don't have to use this as often anymore. However, if you come across it, that's what it's for. It's just a stick and it has a magnet on the top. The next thing that you definitely need while pressure canning and or water bath canning is this. This measures headspace, and it has these teeth right here along the edge. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but they have numbers. You can kind of see it right there. There's numbers on here, and it says anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch, I believe, to 1 full inch. And the ball canning book tells you and shows you how much headspace you need, both with water bath canning and pressure canning. And you use this, you sit this on the edge of the rim. So say I need 1 inch headspace, I would put this corner right here on the rim. And this piece would not need to be touching the liquid or vegetables or whatever it is I'm canning. So that's how you measure headspace, because that's about 1 inch. And you can also use this to burp your jars. So whenever you're pressure canning or water bath canning, you want to make sure you burp them. And what that means is you stick this end, or you can use a knife, chopstick, a stick, any of the above, and you stick it in and kind of just move the pieces around a little bit, or stir it around a little bit very gently. And that gets any air bubbles out that can cause your lids to not have a good seal, or to cause them to leak in the pressure canner or water bath canner. So obviously we don't want that, because that can cause the liquids to get on the rim and for you not to get a good seal while pressure canning or water bath canning. So I hope this is helpful to you guys. That's about all the pieces that I use. Again, it depends on what your water bath canning or pressure canning, but I've enjoyed learning, and as I learn, I will share with you guys as well. I have the very basic ball canning book, and I'll show you what that looks like as well. It's literally just the very basic stuff. Now, if you are like me and you're new to it, that's the perfect thing to start with, because you can start learning the very basic things, such as canning apples or applesauce or jams and jellies. Now, if you are an avid canner, There are many books out there that are great that you can use as well that have all kinds of recipes and options. And bulk canning makes one that's, very thick. It's a very thick book. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or, want to know more about anything in particular, please comment below. I'd be happy to share what I know and what I've learned so far. There's so much to this. It's hard to cover all of it in a short video without you being completely bored to death. But hopefully this was helpful and insightful, and I showed you different pieces and the different ways you can use it. I know there's a lot more to it, so please follow along with me on the journey. If you're looking for a place to start with water bath canning, and I will link a video to the end of this one that is for applesauce. That was probably so far one of the easiest things that I have canned, just because you can make the applesauce ahead of time. You don't even have to make it all and can it all at the same time as you can make it and then can it on a different day if you really wanted to. But that was a very, very simple, easy way to start. So I will definitely link that video at the end of this one. That's water bath canning, and it is for applesauce. So that I would recommend is probably a great place to start. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, then thank you guys so much for following along. I hope this was helpful, and be encouraged. It is doable, even if you don't have family that is in the area to help you. It is doable to learn it. So thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.